Right.
when I was hiring people to work for me, I want to just make sure this person isn't some sort of like extremist or maybe crazy person. So yeah, I will do all kinds of searches. Can I find them on Facebook,
Yeah.
Google, Twitter?
If you want to have some quick wins and do like a fast track or a rapid approach.
So if you're applying to 50 jobs a day, it's really only a 1 hour task
Wow.
per day. Like, we're assuming you spend just a little over a minute on each one.
All right. Well, welcome, Team ET. Pleased to have you with us again for another week. And as you would have heard me express in the intro, today we're speaking with a millennial, right? So um, for those that know me, I'm a baby boomer, so we're a few generations apart. But we're speaking with a millennial who loves talking about personal finance. Now, you can correct me on this, Annie, when you have a chance, but you like talking about personal finance. And in particular, from what I read, you're really passionate about talking with other millennials about personal finance. Interestingly, our conversation's not so much about personal finance today. We're going to be talking about your book. But with that said, welcome to the ET project, Annie Yang.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me on the ET project. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about my new book, The Five
Yeah,
Day Job Search.
thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited as well. Now, I have a question for you at the beginning, right, before we get into all the nitty gritty details. But Annie Margarita Yang. Margarita, where is this your real middle name, or is this a name that you've made up for social media purposes? What's the story?
No, that's my full name. And
Okay.
a lot of people think I was named after the drink, right? The alcoholic cocktail. But my parents originally intended to call me Annie Margaret Yang.
Ah,
But because they're Chinese immigrants and they don't really know how to spell and write in English, they asked someone, like, I think from the hospital to help them fill out the birth certificate. And they asked a Hispanic guy, they were like, "Oh, can you write down Margaret for us?" And then he said, "Sure, sure, I can write down Margaret." And then when they got the birth certificate, it said Margarita. And they were like, "Wait, that's not right." But I mean, I guess we'll keep it because Annie Margarita Yang has a nice ring to it. So I
yeah.
got Annie Margarita Yang, and then my sister is Jenny Margaret Yang. She got the middle
Ah,
name that I was supposed to get. Yeah.
very good, very good. Your sister is younger or older? Younger, obviously.
She's younger,
Yeah,
obviously, because she got the Margaret after I got
right.
it.
Very good. And you're also referred to in some of the media that I read as a candid, no fluff YouTube personality. Do you describe yourself that way?
That was my bio writer who described me that way.
Ah,
I never saw myself as candid and no fluff. I think Yeah, probably. I guess when other people watch my videos, they like the fact that I don't hold back. I don't care how bad it hurts to hear it, but I speak the truth.
right.
I speak my truth. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very good. Well, I'll touch on your YouTube channel a little bit in a moment because you have one video in particular that went viral, and I'm just curious what that did for your career. But you also have two books, and we're going to go deeper into the one you mentioned, the 5 Day Job Search, during our conversation. But I was interested to learn that you have another book that you brought out in, I think, 2017 called
That's
The
correct.
1001 Ways to Save Money. So it seems like you've been passionate about finance for some time. Is that the case?
Yes, I've been passionate about personal finance for 10 years
Wow.
because when I was in high school, my guidance counselor told me that if I don't go straight to college, then I'm going to be a failure for the rest of my life. And I asked her, well, what options do I have in terms of a career that doesn't involve going straight to college, that maybe needs a certification or a license, but not like a full on degree? Because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I've been in school K to 12 what if there's something out there that doesn't fall within academia? Even though I'm
mm,
good at academia, what if my interests don't lie within an academic subject? And she was not able to give me advice. Instead, she just kept pushing for college. So after high school, I worked a whole string of minimum wage jobs, and I came across Dave Ramsey. He's a really popular guy here in the United States talking about living debt free, and he was talking about how so many people live paycheck to paycheck even though
right.
they earn a lot of money. And that was a shock to me. Like, I always thought in order to be well off financially, you only had to make a lot of money and everything else would be fine. But
Mm,
I learned from him that you have to manage it really well. So I actually became interested at 18, which was a great thing, because of him. Like, I thought my mindset was, if I can't play a good offense in my finances, meaning I can't make a lot of money, then maybe I can play a really good defense and
mm.
still make it. That's what I thought.
And hence you got into the budgeting side of the financials, looking at how you can save rather than spend and make your dollar stretch further. So very, very interesting. Just on the topic, you mentioned Dave Ramsey. I'm wondering, any other mentors or anyone else that's influenced your thinking over the years?
In terms of finances, Dave Ramsey had the most, but I
Mm,
think later on, it wasn't like any particular people online that I found. It was simply from helping companies and businesses with their finances, and watching how other people spent their money differently and that they had different philosophies. Like, I have met many business owners that were okay with debt because they use debt to leverage in their business, right? They
right.
use debt to make money.
Yeah.
And prior to working with them, I had the Dave Ramsey mindset, like, oh, all debt is bad debt. Doesn't matter what kind of debt, you shouldn't have any debt at all. And I really like embodied that mindset until I started helping other business owners. I saw that they had debt, but I also saw that
Right.
they made a lot of money and financially they were fine. So I had to learn to adjust to my mindset
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I also grew up with parents that used to preach the same philosophy. You, debt is bad. You should never have debt. You want to live debt free. If you do that, your life will always be great. And um, I've had different experiences with money over the years, been wealthy, been broke. Um, but like you say, if you can learn how to manage the money, then debt's not always the negative that it's portrayed to be. Right. So very, very good. Um, I looking at your book, looking at your bio, talking to you previously, looking at everything that you do, you come across as an extremely focused, driven individual in the nicest possible way. And I'm wondering, how did you get to this point? Like, what created this persona about you?
I think I was always like this, maybe even as a kid. Yeah, I think Yeah, even as a kid, I was really focused. In my academics, I was always a straight A student.
Right.
I think I had a lot of discipline. Like, even when I was 18 and I got introduced to Dave Ramsey's concepts about like delayed gratification,
Mm,
I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds obvious." And I implemented it right away. Even earning a minimum wage, I said, "Okay, I'm working at ShopRite. I'm making $8 an hour. I'm going to save $4 of every 8 that I make. Every
right.
dollar, like, once it gets into my bank account, I'm transferring half of it into my savings account." So I think even back then I kind of had this focus, maybe not
Mm,
as much as today. I think today it's much more intensified and amplified compared to back then, because as you grow older, you just become more and more of what you were, like
right. Right.
personality wise and character wise. So that's hard for me to say. Some people have it, some people don't, maybe. But you can also learn, because I started off with money, being disciplined with my money.
Mm,
And then how you do one thing is how you do everything. So once you learn how to be disciplined with your money, can you be disciplined with your diet? Can you be disciplined with your exercise? Can you be disciplined with reading every day? How
Right.
about being disciplined with, like, right now, practicing piano? That's what I'm doing now for the last 2 years, learning
Yeah.
piano as, like, a total beginner. So I just end up applying that same discipline to various aspects of my life.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if we'll touch on it in our conversation on the book, but you talk about the piano as an example of that discipline and applying that same approach to hunting jobs and preparing yourself to be ready for that job search. So yeah, it's a very interesting way that you speak about it. Um, I just want to quickly touch on your YouTube channel. Very successful. You had a video, I think it was, excuse me, at the beginning of 2019. And for whatever reason, it went viral. So congratulations on that. But
Thank you.
were you surprised at that stage? I mean, your book had been out for almost 2 years. Um, how big was your following at that point when you released that video?
I was a total nobody. I had been helping people with their finances for 5 years at that point without making a single dollar or penny.
Right.
Everything I had done up to that point, I had done for free. I had taught Dave Ramsey's class for free 2 times. You know, even going to the extent of having a 4-hour round trip train ride from Brooklyn to Long Island just to teach one person while
Wow.
making nothing off of her. Yeah, like for several years, I have gone out of my way to help people. The book that I wrote, 1001 Ways to Save Money, that was written 2 years before I made my first YouTube video. That had no sales for 2 years. You know, in fact, I lost money on that book in those 2 years because when it initially launched, I asked my friends and family, like, would they like to get a copy of the book if they just write me a review? So, you know, that cost me money just to get
Yes.
those reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that YouTube video that went viral was just people say it was lucky. I guess you could say that, but I had been doing work for free for 5 years before I got noticed at
Wow.
all by anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. And you talk about that in the book as well, in the sense that um, every overnight success has a decade of hard work in the making to get to that point. So we'll touch on that. But today, if I look at your YouTube channel, you have 18,000 subscribers. You have a number of very successful videos on there. So congratulations on all that you're doing. I guess you have some sort of vision about where you hope to take things from here.
Yeah, well, with the YouTube channel, I'm actually it's a little difficult because I'm doing everything myself at the
Right.
moment until I have everything down pat, like system wise. I'm still
Yep.
fleshing out the systems and processes, but I do want to make more YouTube videos. I have been really inconsistent the last 2 years because I was growing my business. And, you know, we see other people, these entrepreneurs on YouTube that claim, like, oh, this is how you make so much money. And you see them posting content every day, every 2 days. And I'm thinking, you're not a real entrepreneur. You're not like a real business owner. You're just like a full-time content creator,
Creator, yeah.
like positioning yourself as some sort of entrepreneur who's rich, blah blah blah. But all like the really well-off business owners that I know, they're not in the limelight. They're like working hard on their business. They're not busy like peddling whatever they want on social media. So I am trying to get more consistent. It's just difficult with the limited time that I have.
Right.
And so my plans for this channel is I'm just going to like take 2 people at a time at any given time. So right now I'm already working with 2 people. I'm going to give them a 5-day job search makeover. So if
Okay.
someone's been unemployed for a long time,
Mm.
they're coming to me and they're like, Annie, I need help. And I'll tell them, like, I'll work on you for free, but in exchange, I'm turning this into content. So I need your permission to be able to post
Yeah.
our recorded coaching session online. So I'll work on you for 5 sessions, and then episode 6 is going to be just like a follow up to see where you ended up. How did your job search go? Right. So everyone gets only about 5 hours of time with me.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe like maybe this will take off, you know, because people love like when on like a reality TV show. You come in and something's just
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
totally run down and falling apart, and people love watching someone turn it around. Just like Gordon Ramsay goes into a restaurant that's failing, and then he does these crazy things like he's like, "What? Why are you microwaving the tomato sauce?" Right? Why is the tomato sauce not fresh? And things like that. So they love watching people turn things around. And I
Yeah.
think it would be like a great reality TV show eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I was visualizing HGTV,
Yeah.
which is
So for
extremely
homes.
successful. Similar concept, right? People like to see things turn out the way they need to be. And yeah, so yeah, I think you're onto something. Excellent. You also talk about 5 values that you live by, and if I share them: education, financial independence, health, integrity, and service. Um, I'm wondering, over the years, have they always been the same 5, or have you found that depending on circumstance, where you are in your career, what you're doing, they change?
They've always been the same 5. I deliberately picked ones that were a bit more general.
Right.
Like if I picked discipline instead as a value, that'd be hard in every situation, right? So I did this exercise back when I was 20 to
Mm,
try to figure out who I was, because I didn't want just like any job. I think I'm not the kind of person where like if I can go work for, I'm smart. I have the ability to work for a Fortune 500 company, and I have the ability to climb up the corporate ladder if I wanted to. But like my heart isn't there, you know? I don't have the heart to do it. And so I didn't want a career where I would feel bored. I wanted one that was like long lasting, passionate. I don't like the concept of golden handcuffs,
right.
like just a high paying job holding me down, and I stay just because of the salary. So I did this exercise hoping that like maybe it would help me discover myself and know myself a bit better so that I could choose a career where I would be be happy, right? Because
Right.
a career is something like if you start at 18, and nowadays, people retire when they're 67. Here in the US, to get full benefits for Social Security is 67, but many people work past 70 because even with Social Security, they can't live on
Yeah.
Social Security.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like a 50-year career span. So it's a really long career, and I think it requires this thought and deliberation before going into something.
Yeah, for sure. Which is a nice segue into the book. So let's jump into the book. I have it with me. So I've read the book. And first of all, congratulations. I believe you're now a Amazon bestseller. So well done.
Thank you so much. I can't believe you read the whole book, by the way. You only got it last week.
I'm an avid reader. So it's only 250 pages. It's a nice book. It's well written. It's easy to read. That was one of my observations of the book, is that you're different in many ways. And one of the ways that I observed is the way you write the book. So you have a chapter that's a page long. So I very much enjoy the fact that you're succinct about what you want to say. You say it, and then you move on to the next segment. So that's a very endearing trait that you have. It was really enjoyable, I have to say, reading the book. Very practical. Um,
Yeah.
so it's
Are you familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh?
with what? Sorry,
The author, he just passed away a few years ago. Thich Nhat Hanh.
no.
He's a Buddhist author, and he's written like I think over 50 books. And when you pick it up, it's like everything is so bite-sized.
Yeah,
Like literally every chapter is just like 1 page, 2 page. It's almost like a poetry kind of, but it inspires you to live more in the present or to let
yeah.
go of your anger, things like that. So I was like, I wish I could emulate that kind of style where everything feels very manageable, you know?
Very nice. And I am familiar with the author. I just don't pronounce his name that way. So, but very good. Yeah, very good. I have to say, I can imagine why the book is so popular. It is. it's almost like a blueprint for anyone wanting to understand what they need to do to become more successful in their job search approach. And one of the things that I love that you highlight, Annie, at the very beginning, in actual fact, you highlight the fact that um, whilst you talk about 5 days, you also talk about 5 years or a decade in preparation to be ready to be able to move to that point. You actually use the metaphor of the bamboo, right? So you talk about the bamboo, forget how many days you say it or how long it takes, 5 years to nurture the seed before it breaks the ground, and then it shoots into the sky within a very short period of time. And that's your analogy to what you're talking about with the book. So I think that's such a beautiful way of presenting it, because it could be misconstrued by people that, gosh, we've been doing it all wrong for so long. It's so simple, we can do it in 5 days, which is not actually what you're saying in the book, right? It's the book itself gets
No,
broken
it's
into,
like
yeah,
it's like since you love to read personal development and business books, it's like Stephen Covey's chopping down the tree.
yeah,
It was a really popular analogy in his book,
mm,
where before you do a task, you spend time sharpening your saw. So
yes,
if two people are given the opportunity to chop down a tree, one person just starts hacking away at the tree and he doesn't successfully cut it down. The other person is sharpening his saw. And then with one chop, he chops off the tree. So it's similar to doing that.
right, yeah. My background is in project management, so preparation for me is always just a fundamental given. And when I look at your book, you've broken it nicely into three parts, but the largest part is about preparation. I think there's 29, 30 chapters about the preparation out of a total of 49 chapters. So
That's right.
it definitely resonates with me at least, but I'm sure a lot of people will understand. So let's jump into it. Um, One of the things you also say is this is something that you learnt the hard way, trial and error basically, over a period of 5 years. If people were to follow the book letter by letter almost, they could probably shave a couple of years off that now that you've given them the blueprint. But it's important to realize it will still take time to prepare yourself fully to be able to achieve what you've achieved, um, as the end result. Is that a fair comment?
It's a fair comment, but actually, after I wrote the book and after I started working with people, I have found that actually a lot of people are really talented and capable and qualified. They really know their stuff in their
Right.
own like job, their own skill set.
Okay.
The problem is they didn't know how to package themselves. It's
Mm,
like how do you, if you're a gift, right? You're a gift to other people. How do you put the wrapping paper around yourself and make yourself really presentable and attractive to others? And that's what I have found. Like a lot of people are so much more smarter than me, but I have a more polished online brand than them. So I'm the one who gets the opportunities. I know how to speak, I know how to write, and I know how to communicate, basically.
right.
Other people, apparently, they don't know how to sell themselves. So what I've been doing is I've been helping people learn to package themselves, to present themselves,
Mm,
and speak in a way that's more attractive to employers. Like this one guy, he kept focusing on the fact that he was laid off, and how he didn't understand how accounting was done, even though he had the degree and a couple of years of experience working in the field, and how like he wants to help people with tax returns, but still is like learning the material to take the enrolled agent exam for the
yep.
IRS. And I said, "Listen, you're quite smart already, like it's quite clear you've got your master's degree. Most people don't have one. Only 30% of the US population even has a bachelor's degree,
Mm,
right? So he's already in the subset of the US population that has a master's as well." And so I said, so the problem is not like you're not capable, that you're not smart. the problem with him is like you don't know how to spin your words, you know? And then so he asked me, well, if an potential employer in an interview asks me about my background or my certification in doing tax for other people, and what do I say? And I said, you just keep saying over and over and over again, I am studying for the enrolled agent exam. When I start working here, sometime shortly after, I will have passed the exam. You don't focus on the fact that you don't have the
Yeah.
EA to your name. You focus on the fact that you say, I am studying for it and I will get it in a couple months.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so he learned how to speak about himself in a better way, and he was able to get a job offer in only 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Let's oh, one thing I did want to mention before we move into the actual content of the book as such, you also have a bonus with the book, and it blew me away when I found it. You have something like 20 plus templates that you provide for people to read your book as a support to actually put in place what you talk about in the book. And it's such a huge gift to readers of the book, and it's worth the price of the book alone, if not 10 times more. So
Yeah,
thank you
I
for
think
that.
so. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
All right. So there's an area in the book that if you say if you want to have some quick wins and do a fast track or a rapid approach, you give about 13 different chapters that people can jump to. So in the interest of time, let's sort of skip through some of those. But the first one you highlight is about creating or curating your own narrative, or your online narrative, and using your full name. I thought that was really fascinating. And back to the Annie Margarita Yang, using that full name online is such a clever approach. I've never heard people talk about that before. So where did the idea even come from?
It came because I looked myself online, I think, when I was 22. At the time,
Yeah,
I had this blog. The blog domain was annieyang.nyc because annieyang.com was taken.
right.
And I had written a couple blogs on it. And then I Googled myself after 2 years of writing, and I realized none of the Google search results belonged to me. Like, the, like, I have written these articles. It should show up because it's Annie Yang,
Yeah,
but it doesn't show up on Google because there are so many Annie Yangs on this planet. So we
right.
had Annie Yang the lawyer, Annie Yang the graphic designer. And then I was like, ah, I was getting like really frustrated. So finally I was just like, okay, I have a full name. My full name's Annie Margarita Yang. I think there's only one Annie Margarita Yang in this world. Maybe I have to use this. It's a mouthful. People are like, huh? What? How do you spell Margarita? Or like your domain name is anniemargaritayang.com. It's like really long. I have to type this whole thing out, and I don't care. I went with Annie Margarita Yang so that now when you search my name on Bing or on Google, pretty much the first three search result pages all belong to me. They're all content that I created or I collaborated with other people. So everything that shows up was something that I curated online.
Hmm. And how valuable is that in terms of the job search approach, like being visible for potential employers to be able to find you easily? How much value does that actually create, you feel?
It's incredibly valuable because before an employer wants to give someone an interview, they're looking at a whole stack of resumes.
Mm,
Maybe some of these applicants have a LinkedIn profile URL at the top of their resume that they can like go to.
yeah,
But yeah, before any employer these days wants to give you an interview, they want to look you up online.
right.
When I was hiring people to work for me, I want to just make sure this person isn't some sort of like extremist or maybe crazy person. So yeah, I will do all kinds of searches. Can I find them on Facebook,
Yeah,
Google, Twitter, just to see like what kind of person this is before I even walk into the interview to do like the questions and the answers.
yeah,
Because like why waste my time? Why discover that in the interview when I can just look it up 10 minutes and decide, yeah, no, that's not worth my time. So
Yeah.
you might be getting turned down for interviews for all you know without ever knowing it because of what you posted online.
Mm. But one question came to mind while I was reading about this, and I'm wondering how much has the playing field shifted now with the onset of technology, AI, and HR companies using more and more AI to do the initial screening of resumes and everything. Have you experienced that to be a big factor in um, your approach?
No, because if you are already posting good things online and you built up a good reputation, if
Mm,
you have a network, which takes time to build, I understand. It's hard to expect an entry level, fresh out of college
yeah,
or just high school person like to have that kind of network. You know, it takes that 5 years to build. But if
right.
you can build that network and you can build that reputation, you will be fine. You will be fine. You know, you still need the good resume and the LinkedIn that's highly targeted for what you're going after. But even with the AI screening people out, you should be fine. Because I have looked at people's resumes like prior to writing the book I haven't looked at other people's resumes, and then after writing the book people wanted my help on fixing up the resume, and yeah, a lot of people's resumes are really mediocre. Like they
Yes.
really do not highlight the kind of skills and accomplishments people have had at work.
Mm,
Like that's why I'm saying like I'm so surprised by how accomplished people are at work, but then the resume doesn't do it
right.
justice.
And as you mentioned, the the majority of people talk about the task that they do rather than the achievement that they have as a result of what they do in their resume. And they,
Yeah, it's a re what I have found is it's a reiteration of the job listing that they
yeah,
had, like their
yeah,
job responsibilities. Like if they had to print out the job listing that they applied to that got them that current job that they're working, it would just their resume would be a reiteration of that.
mm, yeah. Well, one of the things I really love about the book is you go into so much specific detail. Like if I look at chapter 15, you're talking about curating your online narrative. Chapter 16 is talking about first impressions and getting the professional headshot. I think chapter 18, maybe optimizing your LinkedIn profile. So you're really giving specific support guidance to how to prepare that brand, that personal brand, that image, how to become polished, like Annie Yang, in that regard. And I think that's so useful. I mean, as I went through the book, I was using it as a checklist for myself. So I have a long way to go as well. So thank you for that.
You're
The
welcome. Though
email,
your brand is great. Your brand is already great. You know, you keep showing up on my LinkedIn feed, and I'm like, wow, this guy's doing great stuff. He's reading like a book a day, practically. You know, so your brand is already good. You know, if I were an employer, I would hire you.
thank you. I'll take you up on that. One of the things I don't do well, and you put it in there, is about the email signature. So I checked out the link that you put in there. I think it was signature.email or something. So I'll be using them. So very good. You also talk about people like Jim Rohn and comments that he made during his career about presenting your best self. Um, People make judgments about you before you get a chance to talk. So based on your appearance, which is very true. So there's just so much in the book which is um, incredibly valuable, I have to say. So for everybody, I really encourage people get hold of the book, read the book. Um, Incredible. There's so many things there though that I could ask you about, like how do you find 50 jobs to apply for in a day, and how do you actually churn that out as a physical implementable action to apply to 50 jobs in a day? I mean, that's an incredible amount.
You know, these days there's the easy apply button, right? If you already have a LinkedIn or that LinkedIn resume uploaded and you already have your resume uploaded on Indeed
Yeah,
and ZipRecruiter,
right.
you can click the button that just says apply to this job. and
I
you don't
see.
have to add anything else. You just literally click apply and then you've applied. So if you're applying to 50 jobs a day, it's really only a 1 hour task
Wow.
per day. Like, we're assuming you spend just a little over a minute on each one, looking through the listing. Yeah, looks good, apply. I think what happens is other people, they mull over the fact like, oh, but this job listing is asking for 10 things. They're saying like they want these 10 qualifications, 5 of them are requirements, and I don't meet like 5 of the requirements. I meet only 4 of them. So therefore, I'm not qualified to apply.
Mm,
And this
mm,
is actually something that holds women back because
right.
women are really much about like following the rules. They're really
Yeah.
like conscientious and they pay attention to small details like this. And they've already like filtered themselves out when they look at these listings and they're like, oh, I don't qualify. I'm not going to apply.
Mm,
They're not going to like me. This application is going to be rejected. I have found like, I mean, I'm generalizing here, right?
yeah.
Because there are
Sure.
men who do this as well, but there are also more men in the male population that are also like, oh, I don't qualify, but I'm just going to apply anyway. Let's see. I'm just going to put in my shot and see what comes out of this. So
Yeah.
they apply anyway. Uh, and what people don't realize is you don't need to like read these listings in depth. It doesn't matter because it's really a wish list. It's like the
Yeah.
employer going on a shopping spree for Christmas, and they're like, oh, it's Christmas. I have a budget. This is my wallet, and I'm gonna go shopping. What do I want?
Yeah.
And I have all these things that I want on my wish list. Maybe I'll get some of it, not all of it, but hey, just to put it out there into the world, this is what I
Right.
want.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no guarantee that they will find somebody who meets all of what they want. And even if there is someone who has that exact combination, right? That person might have a personality problem that might not get well with the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Or that person doesn't even have the desire to work for that kind of company.
Mm. And that comes back to a personality trait that I see that really shines through with you is you're such a um, disciplinarian in your approach. Your target is to shine and outperform others, perhaps, or at least in your job to do the best you can possibly do. Now, not everyone approaches their employment in that manner, and I guess that's one of the defining factors that I see about you. So I'm sure that's had a big impact when you've been applying for different jobs throughout your career.
Yeah, that's right. I think I want to do the best that I can. I like to put my best foot forward. So
Yeah.
even if I'm not paid well, or even if I'm working for a flat fee on a project
Mm,
and I've gone overtime, I've spent so much more time than I expected to the point where I'm making less than minimum wage on a project because I charged the wrong price for a flat fee. I will still continue to put in my best work,
right. Yeah.
until the contract is terminated and finished and complete. Uh, because it just doesn't feel right unless I put in my best work.
Mm. Not everyone has that mindset, I would say, based on my experience, but it's very credible that you do. There's certain areas of the book that I really align with. One of them is your approach. Once you're selected or given the opportunity to have a interview, that's when you really dive in deep and do your research and your preparation in relation to the company. And in my own career, interviewing a lot of different people, one of the areas that I always am critical about is how little preparation some people do. Now that's either because they're doing too many interviews and they're just really not that focused. But you give suggestions like there's 2.5 pages of potential questions that you as the interviewee could be asking to the company. And some of the questions, by the way, are brilliant. I really enjoyed reading them. I'm going to use some of them myself with some of my interns at some stage in the future because I think they really are so powerful. in the sense that you're really turning the spotlight away from you back onto the company. And you're asking the questions that help you shine above your competitors looking for this job. So I think they're really, really well founded. So yeah, nice work. One area that you talk about is reframing. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit, particularly with people, as you mentioned earlier, that are struggling to really position themselves where they could be, and they need to reframe in their mindset so that they can tell a stronger or more powerful story. How does that play out when you're talking with your clients?
Yeah, like the people that are coming to me, like one right now has been unemployed since May. He's been unemployed for 6 months at this point, right?
Mm,
And he said he's getting desperate. Like, I really need it ASAP, right away. I need to pay my bills. I'm in debt, and I can't put food on the table very soon. I'm going to run out of savings and things like that.
yeah,
And it's hard. I understand because your brain goes down this rabbit hole where it just like over and over and over again will just replay these thoughts, and it's not going to serve you in your job search. So I think a lot of life, a lot of the issues we have in life is really about how we frame things, right?
yeah,
And if he goes into that interview with that kind of desperate energy, he's not going to land the job, because employers can sense this. Anyone can sense this. Like, oh, something's off about this guy. Why does he desperately want to work here? You know?
mm,
Um, so you really just have to think of like, okay, if I am unemployed right now and I can't pay the bills, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, I will be homeless. Okay, but maybe I can move in with my other family members, even if they are out of state. I can ask them for help. I won't be able to put food on the table. Well, maybe there's like a nearby food pantry where I can get help in terms of food, right?
yeah,
Uh, like there's so many different options before homeless. Homeless is really like the last step. There's a lot of social welfare programs out there to help people that are in need here in
mm,
the United States. You just have to know about these programs. So if you think about it in this way, then what happens if you don't get the job? Right? Instead of drumming up this worst case scenario that your brain likes to do, you can think like, oh, if I don't get this job, things will just be exactly the same as they are now. And I'm living that reality right now. So it's okay.
yeah,
It's okay. Right? Yeah.
yeah. Let's say that I'm in a job that I'm not enjoying and I want to get out, but I can't afford to get out, similar to what you're talking about, until I've got something else that I can move on to. So if you have somebody come and they're talking with you, working with you like that, are there any suggestions you would give to that person to get them started?
Yeah, they just really need to start doing the things that I talk about in the 5-day job search, not just mindset about like how to think about your employer while on your job search, but
Mm,
just everything, implementing the headshot, crafting up an resume that will attract employers,
right.
working on your LinkedIn profile, and then doing the apply to 50 jobs a day and only research after you are scheduled for an interview. Like if you just follow that advice, you
Mm,
will be fine, right? Very shortly after you follow this advice, you will be given a job offer and you will be able to get out of that toxic workplace. So
yeah.
it really is just a matter of like thinking like, okay, I can change this, because people think they're tied to their employer for some reason.
Mm,
Like it's better to keep things as they are because at least these are knowns than it is to change and go into the unknown.
right.
That I think that's a mindset that people have. But you can get out of your situation. You're not like held to gunpoint. You're not forced to work there,
Mm,
right? You're there by contract and you can break the contract at any time.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. One of the things I was also curious about is what about the post-interview process? What recommendations do you have for people? They've been to the interview. How soon after the interview should they follow up? Is there a specific way to do that? What's your thoughts around that?
my thoughts about this is you can follow up the next day and just say thank you for the interview. I look forward to hearing from you the status of my
Mm,
application, right? But like if you hound them like every day, hey, what's the status? What's the status? What's the status? You will come across as desperate. That
yeah,
and nobody likes that desperation. So I would say, next day say thank you, or even immediately after the interview, you can just write a quick thank you email, and then you
yeah,
can follow up a week. A week, I think a week would be good enough, because they might be interviewing other candidates. So if you give a week, they've probably finished interviewing a couple of the other candidates, and they can clearly see whether you are a good fit or not, and whether they
mm,
want to move forward with you.
yeah. One of the things, and we're going back many decades now, so I'm not sure it's still applicable, but one of the things that I used to like to do was to follow up with a bullet point list of things that I took away from the conversation, the interview, that would then apply to the role that I was trying to get, just to show that I was really thinking about the role and how I could apply it. So I'm not sure if that would be useful, but yeah,
That sounds pretty smart. That's a good tip that I've never heard of before.
you're welcome to use it. I'm wondering, is there anything we haven't spoken about that you think our listeners would benefit by being aware of in
Yeah, I
relation
think
to the?
maybe the salary negotiation.
Mm,
So people we see so many strikes happening across the US right now,
right.
and unions are organizing and asking for more pay, but you have to understand we live in a capitalist system where the pay is determined by supply and demand, you
Mm,
know. Um for people that are not part of a union where they have to negotiate on their own, right? You're not going to get the pay that you want simply because you want it. You get the pay that you want based on market forces. It's
yeah.
almost like when you go to a seafood restaurant and some of the fish on the menu, like let's say you want to get lobster, it says market price. The market price changes every day, right? There's no set price for the lobster on the menu. It's almost like that.
Yeah.
So, in order to find out what the market price is for the job you're doing, you need to do that research on your own. It's not the employer's job to tell you, right? So if you want to successfully negotiate for yourself, you need to type in the job title, and plus the local area where you're living, or like the city and state,
Yeah.
into Google, for example, and then open up all of these sites in new tabs. Like, for example, PayScale is one of them, or Glassdoor also shares salary data as well for
Mm,
positions in different states. And so you want to find the average of the low, the average of the median, and the average of the high.
yeah.
That way, when the employer comes back to you with the offer, is it on the low end of the market, is it in
Mm,
the median or the high end, and you should know where you fit, because if you're highly experienced and you're not entry level anymore, you should fit more on the high end,
yes.
right? So I think that is the fairest way to negotiate. You shouldn't be negotiating and saying, well, I deserve more simply because I'm so great. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, great advice. And you in the book you talk about one example with your own career and how you were able to increase your salary by a phenomenal amount. I have to say, putting myself in the employer's role. Um, Great story, and I like the negotiation side of the book as well. So thank you for that. Annie, where can people go connect with you, talk with you about what you're doing, buy your book?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. I check LinkedIn every day. So they can go on linkedin.com/in/Annie Yang Financial. And to buy my book, I have a special offer for your listeners today. They can go on annieyangfinancial.com and add the book to their shopping cart.
Mm-hmm.
And upon checkout for the 5-day job search, they can enter the coupon code ET, literally the two letters, just ET, for a 10% off on the signed paperback copy. And
Fantastic.
I'm also on YouTube mainly. That's where my main social media is. So
Mhm.
to catch up with me there, just search Annie Margarita Yang, and I should be the first result.
You are. I tried it today in preparing. So, yeah, very, very good. Well, thank you for that, and we'll put all that in the show notes as well. But great conversation, great book. Again, the 5-day job search. Highly recommend that everyone goes and gets a copy. Whether you're looking for a job or you're not, I'm sure you know somebody that is. And as executive talent, as leaders of business, it's as much about helping others as it is about helping yourself. So excellent read, great knowledge. And thank you, Annie, for being on the show on the ET Project. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Wayne. I really enjoyed being here today.
So what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button below and click on the bell icon so I can pop up in your feed occasionally with a great tip for your ultimate growth.